Welcome back to the Stuff or Whatever podcast. B. Quanchi here, your host, and let's get down to it. But before we do, I always want to get a habit of saying, please like, comment, subscribe, all that. I do have my social links in the description of videos as well as about on the channel. So follow on Twitter. I do stream on Twitch. I'm trying to get a habit of doing that more often. Just because I would like to see the future, more engagement, more interaction, to see what this podcast can be. I think it's still kind of a lump of clay that can be molded. Could have some ideas, kind of some format things. Nothing too big, just kind of ideas of like how I can go about recording it, especially since it's a solo cast and maybe it's a little boring at times, but maybe just some weird random person just thinking out loud about whatever and stuff or whatever. But the first thing I wanted to talk about in this podcast is the Smash reveal, because this week we got the reveal of the last final character in Super Smash Bros. Ultimate, which is Sora from Kingdom Hearts. I'm sure everyone knows that by now. I'm not going to spoil that for anyone. But I was really happy with the news. It makes a lot of sense. I'm sure people were saying that was leaked or confirmed before the announcement, but it's like with internet these days, especially like games and upcoming releases and stuff, people can say it's leaked, leaked, or whatever, but it could just be like, no, that makes sense, it's likely, or just making a prediction sounds like it has more grounds or whatever, saying that it's leaked from some known source or someone on the inside. But yeah, Sora is going to be in Smash later this month. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I feels like I have some slightly mixed feelings, but mostly positive. I think he's, again, makes a lot of sense. I think he'd be a great character to play as. I know people will complain about sword fighters and stuff like that, like the anime sword fighters, and I think Sora is a little bit different than that, even though his Keyblade weapon could be considered similar to a sword and all that. But it's like, I think Square has a lot of character representation in the latest Smash Bros. Game. I was kind of hoping for maybe more first party going to Nintendo, because for me, what I was really hoping is that they would drop Geno from Super Mario RPG and then be like, oh, by the way, if you want to play the game he's on, would you also dropping Super Mario RPG on Nintendo Switch Online? But they didn't. People are still waiting for that. But I think also people have been wanting Sora in the game for years, so he's been a high demand. And so I think it's a really, really good choice, and looking forward to playing him in Smash. One thing that kind of ruffles my feathers about the announcement that kind of irks me, I don't see many people really talking about this, but well, they talked about shortly after Nintendo. I think it was, I didn't watch the full thing of Sakurai like talking about the characters and stuff. I just pretty much saw the official trailer and clips and bits into like on Twitter. But Nintendo's also announced that the Kingdom Hearts games are coming to Switch. More details to come, but I believe, I know I haven't played all the Kingdom Hearts game. I pretty much just played 1 and 2 and Chain of Memories when it was on the Game Boy Advance. So I haven't played remakes, but there's a lot of collection like extras and remixes, and they ported a lot of games, because I think there's like one for the PSP. I'm not sure if the one for DS is going to come to Switch too in this collection, but also we're going to get Kingdom Hearts 3. But the big thing about it that I think it's a downside is that they're cloud versions. And I think that's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. But pretty much what the cloud version means is that if you have it, you don't actually download the full game. You just have like a software that boots up the game, and it's basically streamed from a server. So you have to have a strong internet connection to play the game. Stable is a keyword I saw when looking this up too. And the Switch isn't that great. I know there's been other cloud versions of games. I think Control is the only one I can think of offhand, so I'm not sure how well they play on Switch, but that's a huge deal breaker for me. But we'll see, because I know the OLED, I think it's probably going to come out by the time this podcast does, but I know the OLED has a way to wire a connection to the dock. I don't believe the Switch prior to that original Switch can. So I think if you had the Switch OLED, you can have a better job of having a better internet connection versus using Wi-Fi, which I think is kind of what we're stuck with Switch models. Especially if you have the Switch Lite, which can't dock, it's just handheld only. So I think that's a big downside. And also, I think other places have better options for Kingdom Hearts games. I believe Steam has really good collection, so I've been kind of browsing that. I might get back to replaying them, especially all the spin-offs that I haven't really checked out. I think on PC, I think 3 is only on the Epic Store. It's still available. I'm not sure, like, for PlayStation or Xbox, what the deal is. I got a little sidetracked, but the thing that kind of irks me about the announcement is that it almost kind of feels like Sora's inclusion in Smash it might be like a marketing thing. Like, is he in Smash because they have all these big Kingdom Hearts games coming to Switch, or was he chosen because he'd be a best fit for the game? And also, when I kind of look at it, it makes a lot of sense. If I was in that position, like if we're going to include Sora in Kingdom Hearts, and if we're going to have the Kingdom Hearts come to Switch, yeah, announce it together, all that. So it's like pretty much free marketing, so it makes a lot of sense. I can't really blame them. If it would me, I would just wait on the announcement for the Kingdom Hearts game, just to let the Sora announcement for Smash sink in, especially since it's like 2 weeks before we actually get him in the game. So we kind of like soak that in, and once that kind of dies down, and then Sora actually drops in the game, like, oh, by the way, Kingdom Hearts are coming to Switch, and all that. I think that would have been a better move, but can't blame them. But that's kind of like a weird thing. Like, you don't want to feel like, oh, we're making these decisions for the game because of marketing or whatever deals they have with Square and all that. I'm not sure if you could say that with like other characters, like for Sephiroth in the Final Fantasy VII remake, but all that. But that was kind of like my 2 cents. But still looking forward to it, so it seems pretty cool. And another thing that's slightly unrelated, I'm watching a little bit more anime. I've been kind of finishing up the Dot Hack series. I was watching Dot Hack Roots, and it's pretty cool. I did not realize that it's actually a prologue to one of the games. I did download the game because it was like on sale on Steam. But Dot Hack GU, I believe it first came out of Trilogy on PlayStation 2, but the collection on Steam also has a fourth volume. Because I remember seeing like, oh, that's the same character from the anime from Dot Hack Roots. I went, oh, the anime takes place before the games, and I think the anime as a prologue does a really good job. So, oh, that's actually really cool because when it kind of ends, it's a pretty good length anime for a prologue to a game, but you don't get that quite conclusion. But it kind of like sets up for the game. I think they did a really good job with that. And I remember playing the old Dot Hack games. I was surprised that GU was also for PlayStation 2 from what I researched, because the first series, there was also 4 games. I remember playing that, and I thought that was fun because for me, I like the ideas of MMO. And those who are not familiar with Dot Hack, is basically it's a big anime franchise that it's like a big, in the future, you have to play MMOs. A lot of concept of people getting stuck in a game. It's kind of depending what series you jump into. I'll probably touch on that in just a little bit. Kind of similar to Sword Art Online. I'm not sure how the releases are. They're close together, but I feel like they kind of run similar. And kind of like, especially the first season of Sword Art Online, because I feel like it's more about the game than Dot Hack. Seems like, for the anime at least, it can be very dialogue heavy, especially since in these unique settings and all that. I think Dot Hack Roots does a little bit better job at acknowledging that they're in a game. Because remember, I think it was the first series, Dot Hack Sign. I think that was a little boring. I might have to revisit that and go back to that. And let's see. Also, I mentioned a few times a long time ago in the podcast, but Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight is a fun one. It's a little bit more cutesy, but I like that. It's kind of a short series too, so it doesn't drag on too long. And I one of my first mangas too, because again it's a short series. And also, I also watched Dot Hack Quantum, which I didn't realize was just an OVA. It's like a 3-part OVA, almost like a movie's length. Because I was a little confused because it has the character that looks like Kite. I realized, oh, that's like the model, but it's like completely new characters. And Dot Hack Quantum is also pretty neat because it also kind of goes back and forth from the real world to the game world, which is pretty cool. But I remember when the first games, Dot Hack, they had DVDs, OVAs with them too. I think it's like Dot Hat Luminosity or something like that, but they took place in the real world only. But it's supposed to be based like to go along with the story of the games. But I found that very boring. I might have to revisit that, but I think that's one of my least favorite. I have to say Dot Hat Quantum is probably, in terms of the anime, my favorite. Then Legend of Twilight, then Roots, then Dot Hack Sign, and then the other one, Luminat, whatever it is. But the cool thing about the first games is that the fourth volume that had a special OVA. It's called Dot Hack. I think it's Dot Hack Sign Gift, which is kind of like a parody. It's like done in a funny style. You can probably just look it up on YouTube or whatever. But Dot Hack Gift is a fun thing to watch because, like, oh, kind of like did something silly and fun just for the sake of it. I think it's pretty much based on the characters of the Dot Hack Sign series. But the thing is, I like the first games because I like the idea of MMO, but I don't like the idea of like paying a monthly subscription and all that, especially if you like have school or other things. So unless I'm not like really playing it, I don't like the idea of like playing like $20 a month, all that. But I think Dot Hack GU is one of the most recent games, even though it was remade. So the one on Steam is really good. Actually, I barely dipped into it, but it plays pretty good. Like compared to the first game, from my memory, I think it's more like faster pace and in terms of like the gameplay and combat and stuff like that, with kind of staying true. It's kind of like a weird, like it sets up like an MMO, but it's of course like it's a standalone game. And the attention to detail, like the level of detail they do, like they have like message boards and forums and like your emails and stuff like that. And you can like spend like so much time like reading specifically emails. The cutscenes look pretty good too, so it's a really neat game. I recommend wishlisting it and grabbing it when it's on sale. But Dot Hack GU is pretty cool series to check out. I am surprised because I think the first games don't really have like a series name. This is the Dot Hack games versus Dot Hack GU, but they haven't like remade them and reported them, which I find strange because they use the characters a lot, like especially the main character Kite. Like they use his model like it's a big part of the lore of the franchise. Like they use Kite's model, like in Dot Hack Legend of Twilight, the main character like wins an avatar based on Kite. And Dot Hack Roots in GU games is a player killer character named Tri-Edge, which is based off Kite. And like I said, in Quantum, one of the characters is a female. That's what threw me off, but based off Kite's design. But it's like a gender bend, however you want to call it. But I thought it was really cool. But how much do you kind of rely on the lore of the original Dot Hack games? I'm surprised it hasn't been ported or anything like that. I think they should remake them. That would be really cool idea, especially if they did that for GU. I think the most recent game was like a PSP one that was kind of flopped or had mixed reviews. I know I also read that they did attempt an actual MMO, but that kind of fizzled out and flopped as well. But I kind of wish the series would make a comeback because it's been around for quite a long time, but I'm not sure it has a strong relevance that they used to. And one thing I wanted to talk about, kind of piggyback from my last podcast, I talked about like working customer service. Some things I left out because it kind of sucks. Like I said, like my main thing is that we take a lot of shit from customers, and there's a lot of things that are out of control, out of our control. Like for example, I mentioned this before, but I worked call center for a credit card company, and then it's like one of those things like you can't give the customer what they need, like if it's out of your control, but stuff like that, and you care like when it comes to like waiving fees and stuff like that, it just kind of depends on the situation. So you kind of want to help out when you can, but for example, if someone like was so late on their paying the bill, like they just pay for a month and then all of a sudden they have a delinquency in a credit report, we can't do anything about that. So it's like one of those things like you have to break bad news, but put a positive spin on it. And of course, because I mentioned before, like getting graded calls and customer surveys and all that. You can listen to my last podcast. I think the customer is wrong is the name of the title, but kind of like my 2 cents on that. But also like decision. One thing I didn't mention is decision that the company does that makes things harder for the workers and stuff like that. Because sometimes I don't feel like they because that's one thing I wish with because I no longer work there, but they had like more focus groups or like, hey, the actual people working the front lines in terms of taking calls, like, what do you think of this and what kind of problems you noticing? It seems like we've never heard as well. Because I mentioned that, like, I think that's one thing, like, when it comes to, I mean, like, entry level employees and stuff like that, it feels like a lot of times management doesn't have the worker in mind. Like, they would side with the customer more than the employee. And not just call center, but other customer service. But some stupid decisions I can think about is that, because with a credit card, it earns rewards, a lot of them out there, but we, they had a campaign that they decided to convert a lot of customers who've been inactive, have been using the cards for like a long amount of time, like maybe 2 or 3 years. I forget, because I know sometimes they'll close your account due to inactivity. So if you have a credit card, use it sparingly, just in case you need it. But I use mine often and pay it off each month. That's another good way about it. But what the stupid strategy was is that they converted these card members from a cashback card to a miles card. And to me, working, it's like the same thing almost. It just kind of depends on how you look at it. Especially the ones we carry, they run very similar. And then you get all these customers complaining and calling and stuff like that. Like, they even had a thing like, hey, if they complain, you can give them a $20 credit or something like that. I forget exactly the details, but I feel like that just, it's so annoying and it made things much worse. And like, no, that if you want to do marketing or you want to encourage old card members to use a card, there's a lot better ways to do it and pissing them off, especially because they feel like, I didn't want this, I didn't choose to do it. I'm sure like in their terms and stuff like that, like they can make those kind of decisions and stuff like that, but it was a bad way of doing that. And one last thing I wanted to mention, which was annoying because a lot of times when you talk about customers and credit card and having a balance and stuff like that, because sometimes they would also do what's called a balance transfer, like transfer large balance from one credit card to ours, usually at a much lower rate. That's typically the advantage of doing them. But they have like questions like, what would be my minimum payment be, or how much interest would I get? Because sometimes there's like choices of having 0% for a certain amount of time or a very low fixed rate for a longer amount of time. But like we would have tools, or like it's in terms like, hey, minimum payment can be based off that. Like it could be based off how much interest they're getting or how high of a balance they are, or like the minimum payment can be based on that. But there's like a few factors, but we can easily look at the account and say, okay, we can expect that, especially if we can see the history of the account. And also, we had like calculators to see like how much interest you would get from month to month. Because that can be a little complicated, even for me, because basically the APR is for a year. So you have to do like math, like you have to get the daily rate, you have to get the time by how many days in cycle, and it can fluctuate because if you have a high balance at the beginning and then pay it off sooner, or if you make new purchases, that can fluctuate interest a little bit. Not to get too boring, but basically the annoying thing is that they said, oh, you can't give an estimate of a minimum payment, or you can't calculate interest for them, especially if some customers are used to that, and then also you can't. And it's like, I to point that it'd be like an operational risk, like we can get in trouble or write up if, and that sounds a little bit more extreme when I say it out loud, because a lot of times you'll get like coachings and stuff like that, or however you want to call it. But it's like, okay, you can't tell them this figure, and it's like something simple. And I'm sure you could have said like, hey, this is just an estimate based on factors, so refer to your statement for the exact figure. But I think it kind of helps to have the estimate too. But it's just annoying that you can't do this anymore, especially is like, it was frustrating. Like, and when they're like bringing the news, we're going over, oh, here's some talking points, like say this and that, and it's like, great, like that works. Like it's like having a difficult customer, it's not like you say, oh, you go over these talking points and magically it resolves the issue and they understand and all that. But that was an annoying thing. So stuff like that. So when it comes to like work, it sucks when, stupid decisions are made, or things are made much harder for the employee and don't have the consideration. And like I said in my last podcast, I think factors like that can cause a lot of like worker shortages and stuff like that, or a lot of turnover with employees. But that's my initial 2 cents from last week. And I think this is a good way to segue to what I've been calling the whatever report. So I've been trying to look things up online. Some might be interesting. and all that. So here's the whatever report. Don't have like a jingle or anything like that. But the first few things I want to talk about is pretty much food related. For those who don't know, the McRib is coming back. So it's coming out, I believe, the beginning of next month or November. So I don't people get really excited about that, and I'm kind of not on that boat anymore. I don't know what the big deal with the McRib. I remember kind of like before, kind of liking it, but I think the last time I tried it, it seemed okay. The rib patty kind of reminds me of when you get like a frozen dinner. It has like the barbecue rib meat, or like even the same thing, like a similar sandwich, like in the frozen section of store. It seems like just as good. So yeah, and I think I heard this before, but I think the reason why the McRib comes and goes, so it's not on the menu all the time, is that McDonald's until pork can be really cheap to get. I'm not sure what that means exactly, but when it can get pork really, really cheap, that's when they get a bunch of it and then do the McRib. And I'm sure it's just like the marketing thing too, like having an item that's has limited availability, so people like want more demand, or when it's in stock, people are more talking about it. Look, I'm talking about it, so that's another thing. But I think the McRib is overrated. I do like barbecue. I like barbecue sauce and all that. It's one of my favorite condiments. But the McRib is, I don't know. I might give it a chance once it comes back, but I don't see what the big deal is about the McRib. Next thing to talk about is that this is another kind of fast food related. It has to do with Wendy's, and what they're doing is that they're planning on making the beloved dessert item, the Frosty, into a breakfast cereal. So it looks like it's going to be partnered with Kellogg's, but the Wendy's Frosty chocolate cereal is coming out. It also looks like if you buy the cereal, you get a coupon for free Frosty. And from what I'm reading, the cereal of Wendy's Frosty is coming out in December. So something to look forward to. I like my chocolate cereals. I like been a good moment, but Cocoa Puffs was one of my favorite as a kid. That's so yeah, Wendy's Frosty cereal is coming out. So last food item that's talk about is Pop Tarts is doing an Eggo, a frosted maple flavor, and this is also coming out in December as well. I think it was announced on the Instagram page, and it looks pretty neat. I like my Pop Tarts, and I'm not sure it's gonna try to have more like a waffle flavored Pop Tart, or it's just like kind of yellow. So I'm not just sure it's just like a basic Pop Tart, but they're gonna have more of a maple flavor. I think it's all Kellogg, so it kind of makes sense. But yeah, they have a maple Pop Tart. I think I'm trying to think of the other one. I think the brown sugar one is like a brown sugar, so it should taste different, but it looks neat. So Eggo Pop Tarts coming out in December as well. Next news story takes place in North Carolina, and Grandy, North Carolina. Basically, there was a car accident, and a man got out of his car to help out. He got out of his SUV to help out, but one of the drivers got into his SUV and drove away. But that's not the craziest part, is that he had 5 children in his SUV. And so, yeah, I think they were able to get the woman shortly after she ran away from the accident. So she got a law charge 5 counts of second-degree kidnapping, leaving the scene of an accident, and larceny of a motor vehicle. So she stole a car that had children in it, so she got being charged with kidnapping. And well, the bond, or whatever, an article is $210,000. I'm not sure how they come up with those crazy numbers, but yeah, I don't know what was going on with that person. It doesn't really say anything else, like if there's anything in her system and stuff like that. But it's like when it's like you can really get away with that kind of stuff, even though there's no kids in the car. Like you, I'm sure like cops were. I'm not sure like how the accident scene was going when that happened, because the crash involved several vehicles. I'm sure like police were on the way and stuff like that. So it's like that's not a good time to steal a car and stuff like that. But yeah, that's a crazy story. Okay, the next story. This is kind of more a funny one. It took place in Missouri, but basically a guy was trying to sell something on the Facebook Marketplace, like a Cadillac converter, or catalytic converter. I'm sorry, but yeah. But the thing about it is that in the picture of the item he was trying to sell, there was also uh, 48 grams of meth in a pistol. And I think he was like had trouble with the law before because I was looking at an article and it says that he was forbidden to own a pistol. So I think he not his first run in into police troubles and legal trouble. Basically, because his Facebook Marketplace had drugs and a weapon, uh, he got busted and busted pretty bad. So it sounds like if he had trouble in the past, it's going to be more trouble. But yeah, it's kind of funny. Like people just set themselves up for that. But yeah, Facebook Marketplace posts got them in trouble. And the last one, this is a weird, more of a what the fuck story, but this takes place in Taiwan. But a man got insurance paid out after a centipede bites him in his testicles while he was asleep. Yeah. Besides that, not too much. I don't think there was too much damage in terms of the incident. They said like he woke up, he noticed sharp pain. Then noticed it was a centipede. He said eventually like punched it or something because you know when something's down there and you want to like slam a book or something like that. But it didn't sound like too bad. But yeah, I guess his health insurance paid off. There wasn't too much details besides that the payout for a loss why he recovered. So I'm not sure how bad it was. But yeah, a centipede bit him in the balls and he got paid by his insurance. But also, this takes place in Taiwan, so I'm not sure how insurance varies from country to country. But that wraps it up for the whatever report for this week. So, and let me know what you think. I'm not sure if I'll go through trouble like posting links and all that, but if something that catches on, I might make more of an effort. But I just kind of find it funny to go over stuff like that, especially stuff that you don't typically see on the news and things like that. But that's that little segment for this week. Okay, and one last thing for this podcast is something kind of random I was thinking about. It might be kind of like funny anecdotal storytelling as well, but basically what the deal is with computer viruses. Because remember when I was younger, like as a kid, teenager, I think my first kind of more experiences with computer viruses is that everyone had like downloading free music and even movies at times, like Kazaa. I think Kazaa was the one of the first ones, and then LimeWire. I'm not sure if they were related, but I think those are two, especially in my younger years. I remember using them. And it's funny how computer viruses work. Again, I'm not quite sure of all the logistics and stuff like that, but I just remember like the deal with computer viruses that they'll just like fuck up your computer, almost make your computer unusable and things like that. Or even the porn ads too, like something like the porn pops up or whatever. Like, I don't want to see that, especially if you're a kid and you don't want your mom or my dad didn't really care, but you don't want your parents to see that and get in trouble. I know my dad wasn't really much of a computer person, but more so my mom. But what I was thinking about this subject is like, what was the deal? Like, what was the end game? Like, what's the point of fucking up your computer? And all that, because I thought it would be funny, like conspiracy to think if it was like more like the entertainment industry, whether it be music or movies or even games. Because I had been to ROM sites before and got games like that too. And only they did that to kind of like get this idea of, oh, I shouldn't steal music or download movies or stuff like that. It's going to mess with my computer. Because it's not like if your computer is being messed up, it's like, hey, call these people to fix it. It's not like they can get paid for getting a virus. Even I'm going to mention in a few minutes too. And also, I don't get the porn thing too, because it's not like, because if it's something you want looking for, then yeah, look for it. But if it's not, then your immediate reaction is like close it, shut it off. Like you don't want to click on it or stuff like that. But I also remember like, I'm not sure if there's like any good videos talking about the subject, like the iceberg or the tip of the iceberg or whatever those iceberg movies were that were memeing and trending on YouTube about like stuff like that, like how much goes into viruses and things like that. Because I remember also what was kind of called ransomware. Basically, a computer fuck up, and then they'll pop up as like, "Hey, pay us I don't think it made it too obvious. Like it didn't feel like too much like, oh, you have to pay us, but it seemed like almost feel like it's like your antivirus that you didn't realize you had, but it really is someone like, hey, pay us and then we'll get rid of our program, quote unquote, and then they can always come back again. But I think I fell for that once just because it was to the point I was so fucked up. Like, I'll just drop the 20. I think it was like $20. I don't think it was like too bad. But it's other time like, oh shit, and then like a system restored or something like that. So I feel like you can kind of avoid it or fix it before it gets worse to that point. But I think a lot of people aren't, and I think a lot of people have been screwed over by the ransomware. But I also worry about like some of the computer viruses or malware or whatever you call it that are quiet. I'm not sure if that's like the trend these days because you hear so much about like data leaks and information and identity theft and stuff like that. Because if I was someone behind like a computer virus, I'd say don't let the computer know that something's wrong. Like you don't want it to like shut down programs or freeze it or blue screen or whatever. Like be quiet, and then as entering, not that I encourage this behavior. I think it's kind of fucked up to like take advantage and steal stuff like that. But I think like they would want to be quiet, and then that kind of gets me a little paranoid when I think about it in the long run. Like if there's a program on a computer that you weren't aware of, but you pay attention to when you were entering in passwords or information, because people do taxes on the computers and stuff like that, and applied for jobs and all that, and put in the phone numbers and money. Sometimes if that's why you get so many of those weird calls, like spam or spam risk or whatever. There was a good moment I was got a weird phone calls from numbers that were similar to mine, like maybe the last four digits was a little bit off, but then also been times that I use like job search websites too, so I'm not sure if that's where people get that information. But it's kind of scary to think about like having something hidden on your computer that's collecting your data. But again, when it comes to identity theft, if someone wanted to steal my identity, they go for it. Like you can take it. You probably want to give it back by the end of the day. But yeah, that's a weird thing. I'm not sure. Like I said, if there's more interesting, maybe in documentaries way about computer viruses and stuff like that. But it's something I was like thinking about, like, hey, that's kind of funny how like you think about back in the day you download music and all of a sudden there's boobies and ladies on your computer and you're trying to hide it from mom, or to the point that you're. Also like, I don't know if this was more like a '90s or early 2000s. I'm trying to think the internet was more in the early 2000s and late 90s, but have your parents like, oh, you buy a game and install it, and all of a sudden it messed up my computer, you gave me a virus and stuff like that, and you're like, because parents can do a lot of stuff too, like especially when the internet was more newer things. Like I remember seeing my mom with those emails that had like the attachments, and it's like a funny video. The two that come to mind is, I think more people might know about, like the mouse that sings. I think the song is called "I Believe in Miracles" by Hot Chocolate or whatever. Like he sings to a mousetrap. I think when he tries to take the cheese, it hits him. I think that's the joke. But that mouse that sings the song, because there's also like the weird 3G, it's not 3G, 3D CGI animated one, and then one I haven't heard anyone talk about that, but it was like a one-eyed green alien like on a disco dance floor singing "I Will Survive," and when he gets to the chorus, like the disco ball drops and falls on her, and that's the end of the video. And I think also the dancing baby was another one that got shared around a lot, like back in the day. But yeah, just kind of the funny whatever ideas, thoughts about computer viruses. But I think this is kind of a good way to at least wrap up the episode. So hopefully this isn't just boring ramblings of some crazy middle-aged guy. But yeah, please comment, subscribe, follow. Especially if something I can mold this into something a little bit more interesting, a little bit more bigger, whatever. But yeah, just kind of having fun with, and I think it just kind of helps to just talk and whatever. Maybe it helps with more public speaking, because I'm more of an introverted person, if I'm honest. I'm not sure if like people who get into podcasting, or even like the really small channels that get no attention, like mine. If it doesn't really do anything, it still gets some value, it still helps in some way. But yeah, thanks for watching, subscribe, and all that. I'll catch y'all next time. Latest.